everyone, welcome to Not So Nerdy Actuary. Today I have with me Paul. Paul is from UK and he's working in the non-life. Glad to have you here, Paul. I hope everything is good at your end. So can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a fellow at the Institute of Actuaries. I'm also a fellow at the Chartered Insurance Institute, and I'm also a certified enterprise risk actuary. So I've done a lot of exams in my time. I've been working in general insurance for 25 years, almost 26 now. Most of that consultancy, and the last 7 or so years in-house for an insurer. I've worked in all areas of the actuarial skill set, but been focusing on reserving for the last 7 years. I've worked with insurers, reinsurers, captives, as well as a multitude of non-traditional clients like retailers, sports companies. Outside of work, I've got a wonderful wife who is herself a very clever and successful actuary, and I have 3 amazing children. And in my spare time, I like board gaming, tennis, and bird watching, as well as going on long walks and park running, which is something I really hope is coming back soon to the UK.
Nice. So,
tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so 26 years is a long time. I hope people will have a good time listening to you. As far as I'm concerned, I'm working at Kuwait Reinsurance. I am doing it from Casualty Actuarial Society. And when I introduce myself, I just tell a very small story to people. Once I was at an airport, I met a guy, we were just chit-chatting. He asked me, what do you do? I told him I am an actuary. What do you do? He said, I'm a lobotomist. So I had no idea what a lobotomist is. So I asked him, what exactly is that? And I felt very proud of that because generally people ask me that question. So I asked him, what exactly do they do? He said, we just collect blood samples and make sure that they reach the patient on a correct time. And then I said, oh, you know who I am? I'm the person who actually priced their death. So I write a price that if it does not reach them on time, then they will probably die. Then someone will come to ask for insurance, and I make sure that company has enough money to pay for that insurance. So I mean, that's a way generally people kind of understand it. But then I also add a disclaimer that I don't work in life, so I'm not that harsh, though my name is Harsh. So apart from that, I love to read and I love to write. So that's what I generally do in my free time. So if you could tell what made you pursue an actuarial career?
Sure. Well, like most actuaries, I always loved maths, problem solving. When I was at school, I did the classic career advice thing, and that said my 10 out of 10 job was to be an actuary. I did everything right academically up to about 19 and a half. So I chose clever parents. I worked hard at school. I got into a good university. But then unfortunately, my immature 19-and-a-half-year-old self decided to leave university, which was a very, very stupid decision. I was very lucky that I subsequently fell into an actuarial career. So, right at the bottom, literally making the tea, I got a job at a company called English Wright and Brockman, which was a very small company, only about 8 people. But that little tiny company that grew into being the huge general insurance consultancy known as E&B, which literally spread out across the world and was, a huge company by the time I left. And I really got the opportunity there to work closely with some really senior, smart people. And then I learned absolutely loads. That's why I was there for 18 years, because there were so many interesting things going on. And just to be clear, I did stop making the tea after about a year when they realised I was much more useful as an actuary than as the tea boy. What made you go into an actuarial career?
Well, like everyone else, I had no idea about actuarial science initially. So after I graduated from my high school, I just looked up on Google the highest paid jobs in the world. So in the top 5, it said one was statistician, one was mathematician, one was actuarial science. So I said, okay, I'll do a graduation in mathematics. So I can either become a mathematician or a statistician or an actuary. So either of these 3. So that's how I just came into it. But then jokes apart, after I went into this and I started doing this, I understood it's not that easy as it sounds. It demands a lot of hard work. It demands a lot of time and efforts. So after that, I pursued my master's in actuarial science. And that's when I kind of became more serious about it. Because the first exam I gave, I failed it, by the way. because I just studied for what, around 8 or 10 hours. So I thought that would be enough. But then I realized what I am actually into. So once I started taking it seriously, after that I have not failed any exam, touch wood. And so yeah, I mean that's what made me come into it. But once you start getting into it, there's no going out. There's no escape. So you start liking it, you're too much into it, and then there's no escape. I mean, you would know better than anyone else, considering you have such a vast amount of experience. So, if you can tell, what is your YouTube channel all about?
So the purpose of my channel is to be a hub of actuarial knowledge sharing. So I'm contributing lots of things to it, and I'm encouraging other senior actuaries to get involved. And I've got some interesting stuff coming up very shortly, which I'm really excited to share with my viewers. The content is really intended to complement the actual exams, as well as to help bridge that gap between the knowledge you get from those exams and what you actually need to be an experienced actuary. So I'd hope an aspiring actuary would benefit from understanding better the kind of work they would be doing. I think junior actuaries would benefit from increasing their skills and knowledge and hence becoming even better actuaries than they already are. And I think senior actuaries also will benefit as they can use the resources on my channel to train up their staff to a competent level. And that's actually how my channel first came about. I just felt I was doing too many training courses over Zoom and Teams while we were working from home, and I thought, why not just do one good version and record that and then just share that? And then I thought, well, why would I just keep that to my team? Why wouldn't I put that out more widely? And so that's why I thought, let's put it on the channel on YouTube and see what happens. And I've had loads of great feedback. I get emails pretty much every day from people around the world saying thank you. So I'm going to keep doing it for the time being, and hopefully people out there find it really helpful. How about you? Tell us about your channel.
Yeah. So I like your channel a lot. I have personally benefited a lot from it. So I'll advise everyone to go and watch the reserving video specifically. They give a lot of insight, which I think that's equivalent to what you get as a corporate training in the office. So it's par at that level. So I'll obviously advise everyone to go and view those videos. As far as I'm concerned, when I started learning programming and data science specifically, so when I ventured into Python, I could find a lot of channels or a lot of areas into different domains where people can learn Python. But there was no channel specifically dedicated for teaching Python from the perspective of actuarial science. So as an actuary, there are a few things which might not be useful for me and a few things which are very useful for me. So considering the time constraints and other constraints when someone is working and studying for exams, I try to fit only the most important concepts so that people can use them and work on it in their daily life and benefit from them. So that was my motive of starting. But when I started, I found keeping it just too technical without any credibility to it would not add any value. So therefore, I came up with this idea of podcasts as well, where I call people globally and people like yourself with tons of experience to tell people about their insights and how important is it to learn a specific skills and which skill sets are important for them. So every skill set might not take you a long way, but there are some skill sets which you can't just go away with. So that was the idea of starting a channel with. So if you could tell our viewers from your experience, how important do you think programming such as Python or other data science concepts are in the actuarial domain, specifically for entry level actuaries with say 0 to 5 years of experience?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty fundamental, to be honest, at the moment, to have that level of expertise, be it Python, be it R, be it SQL. I think there's so many tasks that you can benefit from automation, from better analysis, from data science and machine learning. I think it's almost becoming just expected knowledge, and I think the actuarial exams now include R because they know it's so fundamental. So I'd really advise people to up their game there. You could get, you can download Python and get all of the libraries for free. There's great channels like yours, Harsh, which I again would recommend people to check out. I think it's a fantastic skill to have at that level. I'm personally interested in it. My boss is interested in it, and we're not even the people who really should be spending all our time doing it. But there's just so much power and capability in those tools that we just all need to be looking at those. So yeah, I'll definitely say it's very important. How about yourself? What do you think? I presume you think the same.
Well, I'll say that yes, it is definitely a very important skill to pick up. There is a lot of untapped potential, and the productivity and the efficiency will reach to a next level altogether if you start using the right tool for right you. Obviously, you can't get away with Excel. That's like jack of all trades, master of none. But then you still need some tools which you can use for advanced algorithm and advanced predictive analytics. So I think more on that terms, it is very very important to have that as a skill set, if not the most important. Obviously communication is any day the most important skill for an actuary, but if I had to name the second most important skill, obviously you will communicate something only when you can analyze it. So if you're not be analyzing it in a proper way or in an efficient way, then your communication takes a toll on that. So I think these two skills kind of complement each other, and they are very 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 important. So considering the experience which you have accumulated so far and lots of years which you have spent into actuarial science, would you advise younger people or the aspiring actuaries to pursue this career, A? And B, I mean, a complementary question to this itself, that if you had to give an advice to say 25 years ago to your younger self, considering your experience this time, let's say give you a time machine to go back and give an advice to your younger self that there and then, what would it be? So if you can enlighten us on that.
Sure. Well, the first half of your question is simple. I would recommend the actuarial path to anyone who is interested in it. It's a perfect way to use the mathematical skills that you love. So I would advise you to only come into this career if you love maths. But if you love maths, then it's a fantastic way to use those in an exciting and interesting way. There's a very ready-made career path for actuaries within insurance companies, but actually I think there's more and more doors opening outside of the traditional areas for you to go into. And I would definitely say that general insurance to me is the number one place within the actuarial path. So I would think that would be a place I would strongly recommend people to explore. But that's not to say that you can't have a great career in life or health or investments as well. And in terms of advice to my younger self, again, this is easy. I would just slap myself around the head and say, don't drop out of university. You'll only make things 10 times harder for yourself. I've enjoyed every step of my career. I wouldn't change it. So I was very lucky that I fell into EWB and EMB and all those other companies that I've worked for subsequently. I wouldn't change that. I had a great experience, met loads of amazing people, learned a lot. But if I was now a 20-year-old or 19-year-old not really enjoying university, I would just tell them to reach out for support and guidance. Don't jump into such a life-changing decision lightly. If you come into a company as a graduate, then you're on a completely different path. I've had to work so much harder to get to where I am than if I just managed to get that support and stuck it out for another year or so. So yeah, please do get your education in, get yourself in the front door of these companies, and then you'll have a great career. How about yourself? Would you advise people, and what advice would you give them?
Considering I am pretty young right now, so I won't give advice to my younger self as such. No offense to you, by the way. But yeah, I mean, if I had to tell myself, let's say when I was a university student, I would say, well, keep your expectations pretty low. Do not keep your expectations very, very, very high. Be more realistic with your goals and aims. And exams are important, but exams are not everything. Focus on other skills as well. For example, if I started learning Python or R or any other hard skill at that point of time, it would have been pretty easy for me today. So exams are a good part, but then exams are not everything. And as you said, do not drop out of university at any cost. You might find it boring. You might get there. You might get it very hard, but just stick around and be very realistic. And I think the most important thing which actuarial profession teaches you to let things go. I mean, if you get stuck with one thing, you will never be able to move ahead. So, I mean, just let things go. Do not get stuck with something and just try to move ahead and find a better place and a better solution. So I think that's what makes a huge amount of difference. And if like as a last note, if you would like to enlighten our viewers, and I'm sure they would want to know, is how does your career path changes your roles and responsibility? Or let's say you are an entry level actuary and then you become a chief actuary someday. How does that path change? How does that, how are the skill sets change, and how is the nature of work which changes? And is there kind of like something which you acquire as an entry level actuary which you take away with you and it remains with you forever while the time you become a chief actuary or something of a company? I mean, I'm sure you are the best person to answer this question.
Well, that's a big that's a big question. I think you never lose that analytical, critical way of looking at numbers. Yeah, every good boss I've had, and I try and aspire to this, can just look at a table of numbers or a graph and just you can just immediately know there's an issue and something's not being done right. But I think, and you mentioned this earlier, I think the critical skill you need to develop is communication. There's absolutely no point doing the best piece of work you've ever done and you can't explain it to someone, or you can't convince someone, or you can't present it in a way that's exciting and grabs people's attention. So the mathematics is almost just assumed. And like I say, Python, is going to become assumed over time. And it's actually, do you understand insurance? Can you analyze it in a commercial way? Can you communicate it to people who don't have math super brains? And can you get on with people? These are all the skills that you need in any career, but particularly something like actuarial, where you're dealing with so much complexity that you just can't talk like that. You can't go into a meeting as an actuary, else you're just going to get in that little box and not be able to influence things. So if you want to be a chief actuary, you've got to understand and communicate to underwriters, management, claims people, HR people, everyone, and that's a really tough skill. And the actuarial exam is going to make you a great actuary, but it won't give you that other thing. So you've got to work on that yourself to get right to the top. How about yourself? Anything you would add to that?
Well, I think once you acquire that analytical skill, the most important thing is to deal with the confirmation bias. And I'm sure you'll agree to it, that actuaries in general are bearer of the bad news. So whenever you go with something to an underwriter or a management or anyone, they have a certain insight in their mind that this is how the business is functioning. Then you go with your analytics and you say, okay, see, this is how the business is functioning, but according to me, this is not actually how it's functioning, and this is not how it will continue to function further. And doing that kind of a conversation with someone and convincing them based on your technical analysis and giving it to a non-technical audience, it becomes very, very difficult. And specifically, if you're a pricing actuary, then dealing with an underwriters, you need a very good communication, because you will never ever agree on a price. You will never ever agree on a price with an underwriter, and that's given. So it's kind of a give and take, and then you need to be adamant about it. And obviously, as I said earlier, that you can only communicate something if you have a good analysis of it. So a lot of analysis becomes paralysis again, but then a good analysis, decent enough analysis, only the right amount of analysis to the right person, and telling them how it impacts the business. No one will care what is your variation, what is your coefficient of variation, how much is your adjusted R squared. They're not interested in that. Tell them business, tell them numbers, keep all that stuff for yourself. But knowing that is very important, because you can only communicate if you know. And I guess that's how it works for an actuary. You are a bearer of bad news, you have to kind of accept that. Obviously, not as bad as an auditor, but yeah, you're still a bearer of a bad news. So I guess that's how it kind of works. So thank you, Paul, so much. Thank you so much for giving such a nice interview, such a nice of insights, and such huge experience, accumulated experience, and then sharing it with the audience. It was a pleasure to have you here. And I'll advise everyone to like, share, and subscribe my channel as well as Paul's channel, because you will gain a lot out of it. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
All the best. Bye.